It began with the Black Plague. Within weeks, the dead began to rise.
Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast. I'm Jonathan Victory.
Hi.
That's Richard Drum.
Hello.
We're going
My voice is breaking. I think I'm in puberty again.
He's growing before our very eyes. We are going to talk about the Dublin Film Festival in a moment, but first I think we're just going to follow up on the previous episode we did where we made our Oscar predictions. Mm-hmm. We've since had the Screen Actors Guild Awards in America and the BAFTAs in the UK, and we have
Did you forget where the BAFTAs are from for a second there?
I think I did, but what matters now is that, you know, they're usually an indicator of what's going to happen at the Oscars. Mm-hmm. And what happened on both occasions was that Leonardo DiCaprio won Best Actor and Brie Larson won Best Actress. So both of them seem a sure thing for the awards, for the acting awards at the Oscars. When it comes to Best Supporting Actor, Mark Rylance won a BAFTA for Best Supporting Actor. I think we're both happy about that.
The correct winner, yes.
When it comes to Best Supporting Actress, Alicia Vikander won at the Screen Actors Guild or SAG Awards, but Kate Winslet won the BAFTA, so that still seems a bit up in the air. When it comes to Best Director and Best Picture, it went to The Revenant, which, I don't know, thinking about it a bit more, it's kind of, the story isn't that great, but I guess it's just the craft of the film. Or, you know what I mean? No, it's a good movie, but it's just like the storytelling is a bit flawed. I think it's the craft of the filmmaking that's getting recognised, though, that they were filming out in the wild, like natural light, the very long takes. There's just such great craft to it. So
you mentioned that as being a potential reason why I could win. I agree, but then again, Boyhood didn't get it for that reason, even though I suppose you'd argue Birdman did get it for that reason. So I don't know. It's odd.
And then in the screenplay categories at the BAFTAs, you had Spotlight and The Big Short winning the screenplay awards. So, and those are kind of more safe Oscar-baity movies. So
they're more safe Oscar-baity movies, but I suppose they are more screenplay-heavy than some of the other films. Like, for example, Mad Max wouldn't... It's not up for best screenplay, I know, but, you know, it isn't as screenplay-centric a film where something like Spotlight is very dialogue-heavy and very arc-heavy and all that crap. So I guess it would make sense that it's a more crafted piece of writing that it would be more likely to win.
I mean, what I was disappointed didn't get anything was Ex Machina, because I thought that was an outstanding British film, if you will. Now,
one could certainly say that, but that would be factually inaccurate.
There was a category for outstanding British film at the BAFTAs. Do you want to talk us through that? Yeah, who were the nominees
included? Now, I forgot on some of them. I think The Danish Girl might have been in there. I know 45 Years, Ex Machina, The Lobster, something else, and then our own Brooklyn, which, you know, spoiler alert, won. Which is really funny because every Irish news outlet reporting on this fact has said Brooklyn at the BAFTAs last night won outstanding film. They're forgetting one word in there, British. They might all cough up blood if they mention that word.
We get so offended if our actors are claimed as British, but this is an Irish film which was a British co-production, so I think
Oh, The Lobster.
It's not the... Yeah, and The Lobster was mainly shot in Ireland and everything as well, but it had some British involvement, hence its nomination there. But yeah, Brooklyn seems like it's on an unstoppable path towards a surprise win for Best Picture.
Yes, its endless train of mediocrity continues to reach new stations and pick up more zombified hordes. Look,
I really hope it wins, because Richard's reaction will be beautiful.
It won't be, though. It wouldn't. That's the thing. It doesn't surprise me that it won. It won't surprise me if it wins again. It's just, it's perplexing. Like, you have finally come around to my view of this. It's not a good film. It's so middle of the road. It's not even bad. Like, at least you can say with The Lobster. The Lobster is uneven but interesting. 45
The
years
Revenant.
It's all these things, like, you can point out, like, flaws and, like, peaks and valleys. Brooklyn is an endless flat line. It is just a single...
Brooklyn is a lovely film.
It is the brown note of cinema. It is just this single, endless, dull movement.
Why can't you be happy for A, the Irish industry, and B, the people of Enniscorthy who've suffered terrible flooding in recent months and could do with a boost to their town pride?
No, you're not even equating those two things. The Lobster...
Enniscorthy isn't portrayed well in the movie, though, are they? The Lobster. That was great. Lobster was great. Ex Machina was great. All these other nominees. I mean, the way it is...
Objectively speaking, outstanding film. You cannot argue that Brooklyn was a more, quote-unquote, outstanding film than Ex Machina, than 45 Years, than The Lobster. Hell, I'll even say Danish Girl deserved it more than Brooklyn did. And Danish Girl wasn't very good.
I like Danish Girl, but like, would you have been fine with like if it was called best, because best is a vaguer term. I think outstanding is something like where this film is doing something different or unique, you know?
Which, yeah, Brooklyn very much wasn't. Unless, no, even the stereotyping was just Father Ted level, so there was nothing new there. Okay, no, let's look. I feel I've spilled enough verbal diuretic ink on this movie. Let's just move on.
The point is, I'm very excited for the Oscars now, especially the possibility of an upset win for Brooklyn, so let's just see what
called
happens.
Brooklyn winning the Best Picture. I said that last episode. I'm convinced it's going to win Best Picture.
Brooklyn,
That's not a good thing.
Speaking of Irish film, though, we do have the Dublin Film Festival this month, and there's going to be plenty of Irish films at it. But I suppose we had a look through the programme ourselves to see what was interesting, if anything stood out. So what caught your eye, Richard?
I'm interested in a film called Brand New Testament. I read the blurb. The only screenshot they had was seemingly a monkey in a post-coital position with a woman in a bed. I am intrigued.
Gorilla,
sure.
It seems like it's
God
a sort of
lives in Brooklyn or something. Is it Brooklyn?
God decides to write.
Jersey.
Yeah, it's somewhere. God is living among us and decides to write a New Testament.
Yes.
And as they say in Book of Mormon, it's like the third one of the trilogy. So this seems to be a comedy in that kind of vein, dealing with religious issues, a sort of Python-esque or Trey Parker, Matt Stone kind of thing.
That'd be my hope. Again, the problem I think we both realised reading some of these blurbs is that they are trying very hard not to explain what the movies are in too much detail, which is good because I like not being spoiled for these kind of movies and these kind of festivals. On the other hand, it makes them very hard to talk about. I'm not fully sure what to gauge from Brand New Testament, because it could be, like you're saying, a Python-esque Trey and Matt kind of thing, or it could just be, it'll just ride on the wave of sacrilegiousness for comedy's sake.
Or it could be like a very abstract Scandinavian thing, like pigeons sat on the branch of existence of the 100-year-old man who fell out the window of the very long titles. I'll say this for Scandinavian cinema, they have very long titles when they're translated into English, and that's amusing for us, but... what was this film? Evolution. Because I was reading the blurb for that.
Uh-huh.
Nowhere does it say anything about the story or what the movie is about.
I read the blurb twice and I don't know what it's about, but I want to see it.
Why? What do they tell you it's
because
kind
I'm
of
a fatty,
thematically
wanky
about?
former film student. Of course I want to see a movie that can't be described in your English language. Okay, from what I gathered of it, it's set in some nebulous never time, in some nebulous neverwhere, in a sort of Cloud Atlas-y post-apocalypse, maybe racially free thing.
If it's so shrouded in mystery, why? What's the hook for you? Is it just
because that's the
you
hook.
might as well go to the surprise film because
because the surprise film could just be a film that I have heard of, whereas this thing I can't even describe. So I want my brain to kind of go huh? for an hour and a half. I want to go in not knowing what it is, not knowing where it's going. Not knowing if there is a plot, if it is post-plot, perhaps. Who knows?
Ugh. I mean, film is a narrative medium, so I'm hoping there's at least some story. I mean, so before we started recording, you said there was another movie called Remainder?
In a similar vein, I think, to Evolution. I'm not really sure where the emphasis should be in Evolution, because they have an accent on the E, but we're putting kind of the French noises on the end of it. So Evolution, I suppose.
Remainder. The
Remainder.
blurb seemed to suggest that a man gets crushed by a mysterious object. He wakes up in a hospital and a lawyer is offering him millions of pounds to keep quiet. So
okay, that's what you read about it.
He uses the millions of pounds to then build... Or something. Yeah, or to build apartments or something.
What I read was that a man gets Donnie Darko'd and then tries to Memento/David Lynch the way out of it. The way the blurb was written, I was getting vague flashbacks to Lost River last year, where it was just every single movie and like all of the director's influences, he was just throwing them out there. So it could either be an interesting movie in the Lynchian good era Nolan vein, or it could be Lost River 2.0, and I'm happy with either conclusion there, either outcome. Because Lost River was an interesting film.
Yeah, because that screened at last year's festival.
I remember actually walking to a shop and seeing Lost River on DVD and going, oh yeah, that did exist. I saw that.
No, we did our best of year episode, and I was like, do you know what Ryan Gosling directed a movie this year? It's like, oh yeah, I did see that. So, I mean, I think the thing about film festivals, though, is that they give you a chance to discover things that, you might not get a chance to see otherwise. But, like in terms of stuff that caught my eye, I mean, there was a few documentaries that sound interesting. There was Not a Film, which is about Samuel Beckett's one and only film, which he fittingly enough called film because he was pretentious like that. There was Hitchcock Truffaut, a documentary about Hitchcock and Truffaut.
I've read the book. Book's very better.
And You're one of those the book is better people for a documentary you haven't seen
A
yet.
documentary about a book of interviews, yes.
There's a documentary called The Judas Iscariot Lunch, which is interviews
It's a good
with
title.
ex-priests. Well, hence the subject matter is kind of about why did they leave the church, and that's kind of a subject I'm interested in, so I might check that out. But there was a documentary about the making of Michael Collins, because it's the 20th anniversary of Michael Collins, and it being the 1916 centenary. They are screening Michael Collins again, but they're also doing another thing involving the extras. Who were
Yes,
involved
it's
in
called
it.
Seen But Unnoticed, and I was reading through the blurb for this one. Again, the blurbs, I have to say, are a source of their own amusement and enjoyment for ADIF this year, because they're all just very weird. Seen But Unnoticed appears to be a combination of a screening of some kind of documentary that may only be an hour long, in conjunction with the actual people who are the subjects of the documentary sitting around in a big room just talking about the exact same thing they talk about in the documentary, I guess. Anyway, the point of it is, it's about the extras from the shooting of Michael Collins, who apparently... Now, this may be some sort of legal issue, I don't know, because the blurb expressly mentioned that they weren't paid. And they drove in of their own accord, they brought their own family heirlooms from home, from the Rising, I guess. So that seems illegal, that they had a lot of extras they just didn't pay. But anyway, besides the point.
I wonder if it'll go into that at all.
I just feel like when I first read that is the most Irish sounding RT documentary I've ever heard of. Let's talk about the extras from a movie. But then I was like, okay, fair enough. So they all volunteered to do it. Oh, they were volunteered. Interesting historical allegory.
Plenty of RTE documentaries about making of Barry Lyndon or Ryan's Daughter, or this Marlon Brando movie that never got finished. And
No,
I think
but
people
more
like
specifically, just
celebrating
the
this.
idea though of getting Mary from down the country lane, who drove all the way up to Dublin on the bus and brought the shawl her mother wore when she got shot at the GPO and had a good talk about. You know what I mean? That's the kind of the RTE-ness I gleaned from it. But
Do you know, before you go on, do you know
Yes.
what I'm looking forward to? 20 years from now, a documentary about Brooklyn and all the Enniscorthy locals and how happy they were to work on the Best Picture winning film Brooklyn.
unless everyone turns on that movie in 6 months and it becomes the new Room, and then not Room as in room, that is in the new
The Room.
Yes.
Very important to make that distinction. The Lenny Abramson movie Room,
Opposed to Tommy Wiseau
stellar
Room.
filmmaking. Tommy Wiseau's The Room is the opposite end of the spectrum. Fascinating to watch if you ever get around to it.
On a further mild tangent, the Sugar Club should absolutely just screen Room one night at one of their Room screenings. Everyone comes drunk, ready to throw spoons, and they just have to watch this 2-hour long Brie Larson sad fest. It's a great movie. Anyway, but back to this documentary. I feel like it's worth mentioning because both you and I have done extras work, and we got paid for it.
Yes.
Unlike these people, apparently.
Well, maybe it was... I don't know why
It's
the
very
90s
strange.
were different.
It's
I don't
the
know.
90s were different. But I just feel like it's not a particularly glamorous line of work. And I know my experiences, if I was on a documentary talking about being an extra, would be I sat around for 8 hours. I got through a good book or two. That was a 99% of my experience.
I was on the set of Penny Dreadful. I spoke to Ava Green. She made eye contact with me. She was very nice. So
I
maybe
was on
people
set of Eye of
have
the
like...
Tiger and wasn't actually used for any point in the entire day. So we all just sat in a bus and got fed for 9 hours. That was...
I mean,
Odd.
but the point is maybe people have some anecdotes, or maybe it is just about pride in Irish film or whatever.
What pride. What film.
Okay, well, look, if you're not into Irish film, there's plenty from abroad to see. There's a couple of films that caught my eye include Miles Ahead, which is Don Cheadle playing Miles Davis and directing as well.
For some reason, I thought you were going to say Miles Teller, and I don't know why I thought you were going to say that, but I know
That would be a bold casting move. That would be Joseph Fiennes as Michael Jackson's level of
I
just
forgot
ballsy.
that was a real thing.
And I mean, can we
Let's not mention
we
it,
don't
we
even
don't
have time to get into that. But I do like that there's a Miles Davis movie and there's a pun in the title, so that's encouraging. And
that's
it's
not
Don
bad.
Cheadle; he's always great. Demon is an Israeli horror film that draws its inspiration from Jewish folklore. That just sounds interesting because of how they. You know, if you are taking stuff from mythology or maybe stuff that your own cultural background isn't familiar with, that can lead to some interesting, exciting filmmaking. The thing I'm looking forward to seeing is Desierto, which is Alfonso Cuarón's son. He co-wrote Gravity with Alfonso Cuarón and is now directing his own movie for the first time. And
I'm just laughing at the idea of having to have two people write Gravity. Sandra Bullock gets lost in space for an hour and a half. Like there's not much dialogue. It's just set piece after set piece. That took 2 writers.
That's look. His son has now directed his first feature film, and it's all about immigration along the US-Mexico border, which Donald Trump just wants to wall up. So it's very timely, relevant filmmaking. I think I'll be interested in seeing that, but you have a perplexed look on your face.
I'm trying to recall, there was a film you showed me, there's a couple of films you showed me about the exact same subject.
Sin Nombre was
Sin Nombre is
Cary Fukunaga, who then went on to do True Detective. And
no, what's the other one though? The Pearl Lost or something? Or
Pearl Lost?
No, not Pearl Lost, it was something Pearl Lost or something. It doesn't matter. I thought Alfonso Cuarón made that one. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I guess he didn't. It's irrelevant, let's keep going.
Well,
Morris Paris?
Morris Peros was Alejandro González Iñárritu.
Oh, that was him. Oh, okay.
I Can Pronounce Your Name, director of The Revenant. When he accepted his BAFTA for Best Director, he made some joke about Donald Gleeson and said, sorry, I can't pronounce your name, Domhnall Gleeson. I'm just like, look, the M and H are silent, okay? And he's like, he just made some quip about, it's as bad as Americans saying Iñárritu.
Yeah, that's funny. What's wrong
I mean,
with that?
but I've seen it so many times. People are talking about Domhnall Gleeson. Saoirse Ronan has had a hard time though. Every single chat show she's on, she's always asked about her name and how. I mean, and I think we're just so used to it. It's just like, oh yeah, Niamh. That's MH is a V. Duh. I mean, because like even though barely any of us speak Irish, we can still kind of just.
Well, yeah, but it'd be akin to us being shown one of those like Welsh town names where it's full of consonants. You're like, I don't know what to do with this. I just don't know what to do with this.
Yeah. Well,
also, thank God she did not win that BAFTA for Best Actress. Brie Larson deserved that. Saoirse Ronan did not.
Brie Larson deserved that, but again, any success for Brooklyn, I just love seeing your reaction to it. So long may that continue.
Frustrating and perplexing. Anyway,
we should be happy for Irish film.
I would be if that Irish film was The Lobster.
In terms of Irish films screaming in celebration that they're finally getting a screening in Dublin, we have Viva, which is...
You've just given me a great idea for a fuck you to someone. You basically get them all to pay for a screening at some festival, and you go in, and the screen stays blank, and it's just a single high-pitched scream for an hour and a half. And you see how long people last.
We mentioned the documentary about Samuel Beckett, not a film. Did you know that Samuel Beckett's shortest play is exactly that? It's just 30
Excellent.
seconds of someone screaming.
Not long enough.
The name escapes me right now, but
he wouldn't just call it Scream after calling his film.
Oh, what was it called? Damn it. Beckett only wrote about 19 plays, so it's very easy to look up if anyone is so inclined. In terms of just looking at Irish films that are screening, Viva is Paddy Rathnach, I'm going to say, and director of I Went Down, and Mark O'Halloran, the writer of Adam and Paul, and they've set a story in Cuba among the drag queen community. So it's an Irish film in the sense Irish people are making it, but I think they're setting it in a new place, dealing with I suppose trans issues, which there is a cultural moment around at the moment. Yeah. So I mean that could be interesting to see what their take on it is. My Name is Emily has had lots of coverage before over the last few years just because of the circumstances of how it was made. It's Harry Potter's Ivana Lynch going on a road trip and journey of self-discovery and stuff, but there was crowdfunding for the film so that the director, who's suffering from motor neuron disease, could make it. So fair play to that director, yes. Simon Fitzmaurice. So it'll be good to finally see that and maybe see that movie get some recognition. Atlantic is a documentary about fishing communities in Ireland, Norway and Canada. And the reason it's interesting to me is because it's the same director as The Pipe, which was a fantastic documentary. It was really brilliant. So that'll be showing. There was one more Irish film actually that sounded interesting to both of us called Traders.
Now, it sounds interesting to me in that the elevator pitch for it is good, in a similar way to like something like Looper, where it's a very simple idea that I like structurally. I fear it could descend into... Because, okay, the setup for it is that you organise a fight online or something like that. You organise a fight with someone and you bring your life savings in a bag with you.
Yes. And
you fight to the death and whoever wins leaves. Now, of course, this being a movie, that means it all goes wrong, they both survive, someone can't kill the other one, that's something like that. It sounds like it could become like sort of just bleak existential sort of what is life kind of movie.
But there's so many Irish movies that are like that, and I hate that.
Exactly.
So if this is more of a dark comedy akin to like Fight Club, American Psycho, or something where
Even if it's a good
it's
action
like
movie with a lot of fight scenes, I'd be happy with. I'm worried that it'll be a fight scene at the start and then just slow, bleak existentialism for the next 90 minutes.
Please don't let it be that, because I just think it's such a great concept. It's such a great way of thematically exploring the recession and the fallout from it.
Yeah,
so.
definitely.
I mean, I think there's the point is there's plenty to look at this festival.
I think there's two
plenty of
biggest
variety.
things worth mentioning. I think it's sold out now, but the Ben Wheatley screening should be good.
High Rise with Tom Hiddleston. It's Ben Wheatley directing Tom Hiddleston.
Well, Ben Wheatley is one of the few people I still think can make good horror movies in the modern age. So if he's speaking, I would love to see him speak. I think it's sold out, sadly, but if anyone can or has tickets, you should definitely go. Other than that, my third favourite great old lady, Angela Lansbury, is coming to the country to talk about her life, I guess. But more importantly, they're screening the original Manchurian Candidate, which he's in, which everyone should watch because it's amazing. It's Frank Sinatra, basically. Actually, no, it's Frank Sinatra. Yeah, basically playing a pre-James Bond, like doing karate chops on evil Koreans that are trying to invade. It's just great crack. I highly recommend the Manchurian Candidate. Angela Lansbury is amazingly kind of vampish in it, and it's a great movie. I think it's on in the Lighthouse.
David Hare is giving a masterclass on screenwriting. Chris Menges, the cinematographer, is giving a cinematography masterclass as a public talk on history and film and
I thought you were going to leave it there.
you
A
take.
talk on history, just history generally. They're talking about history.
As it relates to film, it being the Audi Dublin Film Festival, no longer the Jameson Dublin International Film Festival. Audi, they've changed they've a new sponsor anyway. Still great programming though. I mean, I think the programmers deserve a lot of credit. Have a look at the Dublin Film Festival website, adif.ie, and
read the
see what
blurbs.
else
Some
you
of them
can
are
do.
very amusing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Just find something you're interested in and go and support the festival. We're going to talk about some of the movies that have been out recently. Quickly, there's just a few things I saw which Richard didn't have the chance to see. Strangerland is an Irish-Australian co-production starring Nicole Kidman and Michael Jackson, who's Joseph Fiennes, whose children go missing in the Australian outback. So it's about the search for them. It's pretty good in terms of that genre. I mean, that genre isn't specifically my thing, but I was seeing it because the screenwriter Michael Kinirons was my screenwriting lecturer in film school. So I interviewed him on a previous episode of this podcast. If you go back through the iTunes feed, it's really good. Check it out. Another film that was quite fun was Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
And this surprises me because I haven't read the book. I've seen the trailer and like this looks perfectly adequate. It looks very much like Abe Lincoln Vampire Hunter, which was a one-note joke, which wasn't very good. But apparently it was okay.
This is better than Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. It's
not difficult, but okay.
No, but it's more fun, and I think it's definitely, I've heard, it is more fun if you know the source material very well, if you know Jane Austen very well, because the usual scene where Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet have an argument, but this time they're kung fu fighting while having the argument, so there's lots of funny moments like that. There's Lena Headey from Game of Thrones in an eye patch as the Britain's greatest zombie slayer. She's fantastic in it. I mean, she's basically playing Cersei again, but it's just doing it as well. Fine. Charles Dance from Game of Thrones also in this, playing that same stern patriarch figure he's always typecast as nowadays, but still good. And I was surprised by just how much fun I had. Now I'm not that familiar with Pride and Prejudice, so I didn't appreciate it on that level, but still pretty fun. It's like the world was established so well. The rules of what kills a zombie and what doesn't, where the zombies are and everything. It's all great until there's something they do at the ending which is a bit screwy, which I think personally kind of undermines a lot of the rules for me, but I suppose it's a kind of nice sort of surprise ending horror movies like to pull. It's a lot of fun. I would actually recommend checking it out.
I mean, because it sounded like, because I know at one point it was meant to be David O. Russell and Natalie Portman, which admittedly Portman sounds interesting for the lead in that, because she obviously is quite classical in her sort of, you could see her in a Jane Austen adaptation, so that works quite well.
She still produces. That would have been a lot of fun. David O. Russell, on the other hand, so overrated, so dull as a director.
But more just the cast for this seems like, I don't know who any of these people are. Like the main cast,
you know, Sam Riley, he's playing Darcy.
I know Sam Riley, yes, but I don't know. I didn't know Lena Headey was in it. I didn't know Charles Dance was in it. They're not in the trailers and on the posters. I saw a snippet of Matt Smith. Oh, Matt Smith's in this. That's cool.
Oh, Matt Smith, I forgot. He's fantastic in this. He's so unsettling. Funny, but unsettling. There was one other film I wanted to mention then called The Assassin, and this was a Chinese movie marketed as a martial arts movie, and I went to see it, and there's very little martial arts in it. It's few and far between, and I bring this movie up because I actually fell asleep at the screening. That is something I never ever do. That movies never would be so boring as to put me to sleep. And the problem with this movie is that it's so slow paced and contemplative that it actually just lulled me into a relaxing sleep. I was woken up during the credits and I'm like, I didn't, did I? So I can't be mad at the film because clearly it was quite relaxing. But if I had to tell you what the movie was about, the titular assassin is hired to kill her cousin, who is also a prince. That's it. That's all I could tell you about what happens in the movie, because it all just blends together. There's very long dialogue. It's all them talking about stuff people did previously. Do you remember what the nun told the princess? The princess said all the dialogue is like that, and it's like, I mean, there's a moment early on in the movie that I think is a kind of microcosm of the movie's problems, where somebody is telling a fable, and it's about a bluebird who a king wants to get to sing, and the bluebird won't sing, so the queen says, bluebirds only sing among their own kind, bring it a mirror. So they brought it a mirror, and it started singing. And I watched that and I thought,
the hell does that mean?
Well, you kind of ruined the joke I was going to make, which is that you listen to that and you think, yeah, that's so profound. Wait, what? Like, you know what I mean? It's something that sounds profound and meaningful, but it actually doesn't mean anything at all. And this movie is so long and just says nothing, even though it is beautifully shot. It won prizes at Cannes, and I guess that's largely because the cinematography was stunning. But I guess it's a bit like a Terrence Malick movie where it might look amazing, but if the story just isn't interesting, it's just such a waste. I mean, if it was 10 minutes long and it was a piece of video art, I would love it. But film is a narrative medium. I think you need to have a story to tell. So I just mentioned The Assassin just for having the accolade of the first and hopefully only movie that I actually fell asleep while watching.
It does sound like a combination of an almost self-aware piss take of every trope you get from kind of Asian movies, like those kind of speeches and those kind of weird abstract metaphors and whatnot, and also being a million hours long and not having.
But it's so slow and lifeless. Even though it looks amazing, it's just so it's so jarring. I hate when that happens. I mean, we could talk about movies we've both seen though, and I mean, I think the first
that
one
would be conducive to conversation. Yes,
but just as a segue. Spotlight we both saw, and yes. I think it kind of had the opposite problem where the story was very interesting and very important to tell, but it wasn't made that well, was it?
I don't think it was made badly. I just think the choices they made, and I think Mark Kermode made this point, and I sort of agree with it, that it's very unshowy, it's very visually kind of drab and ordinary, and it's not interesting to look at, but then again, it shouldn't be, because it's about very serious subject matter. It shouldn't be flashy and fun. Like, we'll get to Trumbo in a minute, which is
that was a fun movie.
Yeah, and that was about serious stuff too, but it could kind of justify it. Whereas this, again, because Trumbo, it's the past, it's sort of done. You know, it has relevance.
Spotlight is very recent history, exactly, though. 9/11 happens during the movie.
Well, more than that, especially in this country, those kind of scandals are still happening about weeks. So you know what I mean.
No, but you see, I despise the Catholic Church and all cults. I refuse to call religions cults just because of their size. I should be telling everyone, yeah, go see this movie because it shows how bad the Catholic Church are. But I'm kind of I can't really give it any more than a sort of mild recommendation. It's like a really good TV movie.
Yes.
What you were saying, or what our fellow critic Mark Kermode was saying about the sort of aesthetic kind of suiting the
we know him, we're on his level. Don't.
We are the Film Ireland podcast. We are a big deal to someone. To our listeners, all three of you.
Hi, Mom.
We have all four of you. We have in Spotlight though. It's really important story about the about the cover up of child abuse in the Catholic Church. So that kind of subject matter where you're taking on uncovering a team of investigative reporters, the Spotlight team, who are uncovering the child abuse scandal. That is like a Oscar Beatty kind of subject. I think what we found watching the movie, though, is we kept laughing how much the word spotlight was used in the first half hour.
The first half, the whole way through, like, it eased up after the first half an hour, but it never stopped.
We kept muttering to each other.
They'd walk into rooms and just kind of say, "I'm here for spotlight." And spotlight? It was like some code name that opened doors, a la the like the stonecutters. It was like it was just this name. They walk into buildings and just mentioned and dropped down. It was just ridiculous.
But they were in the investigative team at the Boston Globe who uncovered all this, and it was Michael Keaton, Rachel McAdams, and Mark Ruffalo playing some of them. Now, I kind of hate this movie for how Ruffalo and McAdams have gotten Oscar nominations that they do not deserve. They are fine in this. They are both good actors. I enjoy seeing them work in things, but I hate it when Oscars decide to give a person, an Oscar nomination rather than the specific performance, because both their performances in this are really average. Like it just makes the Oscars so white thing more frustrating. Like, because like what we were saying in the previous episode, where I was suggesting you could have had Benicio del Toro in Best Supporting Actor or Amanda Brugel from Room in Best Supporting Actress. Remove the spotlight actors. These are not Oscar-worthy performances at all. So I think I'm just kind of... White mediocrity is rewarded before black brilliance. I think there were of all the years the Oscars could have done this, there was Dope, Straight Outta Compton, Tangerine, Creed apparently is getting nominated for other things, or Sylvester Stallone is for some reason. Look, I feel like the Oscars aren't really racist, because they're rewarding this movie because of its white cast, and it's like, and again, it's an important story to tell, and it's like, it's fine, but it's not worthy of these acting nominations or the directing nomination, because the direction, even however much you can justify that maybe it needs that kind of austere aesthetic, I kind of hate it when there's something that makes a movie like flawed, but then you say, oh, but you kind of need it for the story. I kind of hate that justification.
Yeah, the reason I think it is good on one level and also it completely makes sense as an Oscar movie is that it's the kind of film you could see being taught in like first year cinema classes.
Could you?
Yes, because
it's really flatly shot.
It's flatly shot, but the directing makes a lot of sense in that, there's churches in every second shot. Like, it's that kind of really obvious filmmaking. I think, and I agree, Ruffalo did not deserve a nomination. Ruffalo isn't good in this. He's actually bad. I found him incredibly annoying to watch because he's very jumpy and like yippy and like he's on cocaine the whole time.
And he's such a Mary Sue. Everything goes so well for him. Well, I hate these strong male characters who like have everything go right for them. Their investigation is really easy, isn't it? That's
I wouldn't single him out for this, because every single thing they do is just I'm trying to think of specific scenes, examples of it now.
But it's like basically when you're thinking it's going to be difficult for them to uncover this, especially in a major Catholic city like Boston, that journalists will face all sorts of obstinacy and like, no, you can't look at these files. And they're basically in scenes where it's like, come on, let me look at these files. Okay. And like they kind of get through all their challenges pretty easily.
Yeah. But I feel like if anyone should have been nominated for this movie, I actually think McAdams was pretty good. I'm not totally against her nomination. Yeah, she's fine, but she's okay.
Oscar-worthy.
I think Lee Schreiber should have been nominated. He was really good in this. Like, it was a really kind of muted performance by his standards. Same with the Tooch, but the Tooch was
Stanley Tucci as an Armenian lawyer representing child abuse victims. He's always really strong. I really like Stanley Tucci.
I couldn't tell if he was taking the piss or not, though, because he's sort of playing against type in that he's this very kind of somber character, but then you kind of, the very last shot you see him in, he's Stanley Tucci again. Like, he's just big smiley, wide grin. You can almost see him winking at the camera.
And actually, with Big Short as well, I would have thought not Christian Bale, but Steve Carell should have been Oscar nominated. You know, Christian Bale already has an Oscar, and he's playing like a stereotype of autistic people. That's not that impressive. And the Oscars just do seem to have this problem that because it's a boys' club, they just like patting each other on the back, and they think, oh, they're a nice person. You know, that they deserve recognition for their work, instead of like actually judging things on merit. You know.
I don't think Spotlight is without merit. I just think it's in a year where there are definitely better films. Like, I totally get why it got nominated, and it also feels like people are moving towards this idea of the nominations list being changed, that there's a best ensemble cast award.
Like the Screen Actors Guild do.
Yeah, and I think this film feels like a proto-example of why that maybe should happen. I don't think this was a particularly strong ensemble cast, but it felt like it was screaming for an Oscar that didn't exist. Like, you have John Slattery playing the character he always plays. You have Liev Schreiber kind of playing slightly against type and very muted and sort of... I thought his character was really interesting.
His character was interesting because he's a Jewish editor who comes into the Boston Globe, and he's the one who tells them to go and investigate this. Whereas I would have thought with this kind of movie, it's usually like the investigative team want to do it, and the editor is like, I've got the mayor on my ass, and I've got the blah blah. No, you're not following this lead or whatever. Whereas it seems to be the other way around, where it's like he's the one who sorts of. He's not in the movie much, but
No.
it's a kind
It's
of
like
Mark
two
Rylance.
cheeses.
It's a Mark Rylance kind of.
It was very
performance
Mark
where-
Rylance, yes, but not as good as Mark Rylance. I will say, if I had two major complaints about this movie,
Understated, yeah.
I would say that one, I thought the editing was a bit crap, in that certain scenes went on too long or was left to hang for no good reason for, I guess, a sense of gravitas, but nothing happened. And also, they just jump randomly ahead. Like, there's one bit when Slattery comes to Ruffalo's house and they're talking, and then it just cuts ahead to him leaving, and they, oh, wait a minute, one last thing. And why couldn't that have been part of the dialogue in the previous scene? It's really weird editing. On top of that, the score for this movie was seemingly made by a computer program. It is just the same 3 piano chords, plinkily plonkily, over every scene for the sake of drama.
We were joking about it being scoregenerator.com, that there was
Yes.
just a website that just looks at your footage and just does the most generic thing possible. But we were
And then we got to the credits.
my heart sunk because it was Howard Shore
couldn't
of
believe that was Howard
Silence
Shore.
of the Lambs, Lord of the Rings, a lot of Martin Scorsese
Mm-hmm.
movies. He's such a good composer, and this he makes such the most flat kind of generic score. So
It
that was
really sounds
disappointing.
like they hired him. He made a single sort of suite in maybe a day that was possibly 6 minutes long, and they just kind of chopped up and put in the movie. It was literally just the same theme over and over again, and it was just a piano. There was nothing but piano.
The Francis Ford Coppola Dracula only had like 3 themes in it, but they
But were they
they
kind
made
of-
enough variations
Yes.
on it where it actually does work. So I don't think that's the problem. I think it's just in this movie, it's just like everything else about the movie. It's just really flat and kind of disappointing, given how much like adulation and praise it's getting.
Yeah, I feel like it shouldn't be in the Best Picture nomination list, certainly. I do think...
Very
it's-
overrated. Oscars are racist.
Whatever. It's fine. I wouldn't say don't go see it. It's perfectly okay.
Hashtag Oscars so white, so very white, spot white. Let us just talk about another film, which this was really fun, and it almost seemed more Oscar baity than Spotlight, so it doesn't make sense why this isn't getting more nominations
Yes.
until we kind of get into it. But it was
Yes.
Trumbo.
Trumbo, which I think last episode I said I want Bryan Cranston to win the acting category, and I kind of, having now seen the movie, stand by it a lot more.
I agree. I think.
I said it on a whim last time because I like the man, but he actually was really good in this.
See, Leo is just certain to win now, but it's a shame because I think
I don't
Cranston
know.
actually gives a genuinely, for me, he disappears into the character.
Yeah.
And everything he says just has such warmth. It's a really funny performance whilst also like having the weight it needs for the subject matter. He plays Dalton Trumbo, a screenwriter who's blacklisted during the McCarthy era. So it's about him dealing with that sort of persecution and the loss of work. He then works his way back up, sort of doing anonymous script doctoring for John Goodman's B movies.
John Goodman playing just John Goodman.
The same character pretty much the same character he played in The Artist and Argo, which also
Barton
both won
Fink.
Best Picture. So, except Trumbo isn't in the Best Picture race. It's
Very
gotten
strange.
Best Actor. But in terms of the movie, it's about the film industry. It's about screenwriters. It's about good white liberal people standing up to injustice from Republicans, and it has all these
More
Oscar
important,
bait
though, like,
elements.
it's equating a Hollywood-specific industry issue with a wider sociological problem, which they love. Like this should be, by all accounts, a very Oscar-friendly movie.
And it's not just Bryan Cranston who's strong. You have Ella Fanning,
Helen
Alan
Mirren was
Tudyk,
great. I'm lying,
Michael
of course.
Stolberg. Pretty strong cast until I was getting to that Helen Mirren, who
She's
is
terrible.
terrible in this. She's actually really bad, and I think the problem is the first few scenes where she's like cackling and she's like being very over the side. It is a lot of fun.
Actually, do you remember
But-
this was her first appearance? We both laughed really hard. 'Cause she was really great in that like single bit. And then
It's
after
like,
that, she
ma'am,
was
smile for a
crap.
picture. She has the scowl on her face. She turns to the camera and she has this like laugh as if she's full of gaiety and she's middle of a big toothy laugh. And then as the picture is taken, she immediately goes back to scowling. And the thing is, she plays a gossip columnist who has an axe to grind for anyone who is a communist or suspected communist. Dalton Trumbo was actually a member of the American Communist Party, though, so that was like, usually these movies are about someone who's like, no, they're just liberal and they're being smeared, but they've had this movie actually be like, or have the scene where Bryan Cranston is explaining to his daughter what communism is, and it's like, do you think it's fair to share things? Oh, you little commie. And it's like, so, I mean, for an American movie to do that is, it new as well, but I mean, to just, I think something the movie tries to do is just talk about moral complexity and talk about people who were in difficult situations and had to rat on their friends or whatever. The problem with Helen Mirren, though, is that she's too one-dimensionally evil, even though like her perspective about like keeping America safe from communists, that is a thing you could make sort of understandable, if not justifiable, the same way Tom Hardy's character in The Revenant isn't just a caricature like that. You kind of see where he's coming from.
Say that word again.
You kind of see where he's coming from.
No, never mind.
What word was it?
Caricature.
Caricature. Okay, this has come up a few times. What is funny about me saying the word caricature? Because there's so many
movies. You say it in a
movies.
very amusing way that I've never heard before.
It is when a character is just so one-dimensional.
No, I know what
you
the
can't
word means.
invest in
It's
anymore.
the way you're saying it.
So there's a bit in the movie where Trumbo is kind of saying like there were no heroes and villains during the whole McCarthy era.
Apart from Helen
It was
Mirren,
all
yes.
yeah, but no, Helen Mirren completely undermines that because she's just way too evil to the point where she's just annoying anytime she's on
Well,
screen.
see, my problem
You
isn't
can't
the fact
take
that
her
she's
seriously.
one-dimensional. My problem with her character is the way she's having no fun with it. Like, Helen Mirren, of all people, relishes that kind of role. She should be chewing the scenery, but she's just really dryly walking around scenes just saying the word un-American over and over again, and it's really boring. But I think the reason the movie isn't Oscar-friendly, though, ultimately, is because it's way too scathing of the industry. I think the fact that John Wayne is probably the main villain of the movie, like, Helen Mirren is ostensibly the main villain, but I think John Wayne's the actual main villain. And, like...
I think Helen Mirren is definitely like the antagonist in capital letters, but John Wayne is in this movie.
But he's within the
sort of-
industry, though. Like, she's like an outside gossip kind of columnist.
And but I think there are bits of it where it's like but just one more thing about the acting. Louis C.K. fantastic.
He was
in this.
brilliant. Yes, he was.
He
really
could have gotten
good.
an Oscar nomination. That would necessarily have solved the Oscars so white problem. But it's he was so good in this.
But he was so brave. The makeup he had on, he was so very ginger. The sacrifices he made.
He was actually born in Mexico, though. Did you know that?
No.
Anyway. With whatever it was you were talking about the way it's actually you would think because it's about the film industry and later it's about Kirk Douglas and the making of Spartacus and how that movie was relevant to the McCarthy era. Although I'm sad Stanley Kubrick didn't show up. He's only alluded to.
I think it was a smart call, and also given that they had what was the other guy's
Otto
name?
Preminger.
Otto Preminger. He was amazing. There's a great scene when Cranston's at home at Christmas Day and Perry just walks into the room, seemingly into his house out of like thin air, and just declares Christmas is over in a really threatening German voice and leaves. It's wonderful.
I guess maybe the movie couldn't. It already had so many big personalities in it. You couldn't also do Kubrick justice, I suppose. But
the thing I find most
there's a
surprising
thing-
about it is that the way it works as a comedy, but also a sort of serious drama. Because the opening 10 minutes establishes this really kind of colorful, light, fluffy. Not fluffy.
It's
Jazzy,
fun, and it's jazz
there's
music,
some
and
really
it's
great
like, yeah.
one-liners. And then it sort of descends into talking about communism, and then he's in jail for like the middle stretch of the movie. And yet it never feels like it's tonally inconsistent, despite the fact that people die, and it's.
That's a good point.
I can't quite figure out why it worked.
I did like how in prison there was a black character. I can't remember the actor's name, but he played Mr. Echo on Lost, and he was fantastic in this because it starts off thinking like, oh, this is going to be the subplot where he teaches a black man to read, and like here we go. And he has this brilliant monologue where he's actually saying, "You think you're going to come in prison and teach a black man to read, and I'm going to be so grateful." And I'm just like, oh. Great, thank you for just avoiding that. He could have been Oscar nominated too because he wasn't in it for much of it, but he was great as well. I think what we were saying though, but in terms of just its Oscar nominations and why it isn't getting more, even though it seems so Oscar baity, is that there are lines in it like how the film industry turned its back on us, or this Oscar has the blood of my friends on it, and it says really scathing things like directly against the Oscars.
He calls it a worthless hunk of gold at one point.
Yeah,
didn't he?
so it actually is. It's too kind of honest for its own good.
It's the inverse of the artist, where it is very much about the industry. It's very much about the production of cinema, and yet it's not this loving tribute to the golden era of Hollywood. It's this very scathing look behind closed doors of the golden era of Hollywood. It's like I think John Goodman's character is probably the most realistic. Well, not really. He's also
with his
a
baseball
caricature.
bat and his
But he's just like, this picture is shit, but it makes money. Rewrite it and send it out. And it is really not a glowing view of the Hollywood production system, especially not in its heyday. So I think that's why it probably didn't ultimately get much recognition. But it deserves it.
It deserves to be
It was
seen
so much
though.
fun.
Catch up on it if you haven't seen it, because I thought it was great. I thought that the main character is a real champagne socialist. Like the stuff he goes through isn't that bad, and he's not that much of a hero. But it is interesting what he does with screenwriting and trying to sort of work his way around the blacklist and everything.
No, that's all great. I do feel that is the one main failing, if I had to pick one, is that it does try to equate his own personal struggles through. Like, was ostensibly just the 1% of his day just kind of, oh, it's so hard. Like, I had to sell the Van Gogh. It's like, it's that kind of level of nonsense.
Or his Trumbo starts off living on this big farm, and he has to move to a big house in the suburbs. Oh, poor you!
And the neighbours, they ruin his swimming pool because the communist. Like, it's
you have to go from having like lots of land in the country to being middle class. Oh, poor you! You know, like.
But they equate that with the persecution of hundreds of thousands of Americans that had much harder times than he had and his friends had, and I don't like that, especially at the end, because the end kind of plays like it was this great victory. Him winning an Oscar finally was this great victory for the Communist Party.
He won 2 Oscars writing under somebody else's name. So, I mean, it's still an interesting story. And like, having said all of that about the shortcomings, it was just so much fun. And it was actually like quite good. So, I mean, definitely catch up on it. Another movie I was worried about lately, just about being overlooked, was called Our Brand is Crisis. And it stars Sandra Bullock as an elections PR advisor, which is a job where you go to different countries and consult different election campaigns. And that'll be relevant to us right now. It'll be relevant actually to America this year, so more people should have seen it. But I think the problem is it's called Our Brand is Crisis, and for a movie about branding, that is a terrible name for a movie. I don't know what else you'd call it, but that is like, I think people just would see the posters. Sandra Bullock, Our Brand is Crisis. Like, just I don't know what people would think of that. It's some kind of political thing, but they're not interested.
It's a very kind of, I think, almost Coen Brothers-esque kind of name. I feel like if the poster was jaunty enough, it would work. But it
was produced by George Clooney and Grant Heslov. They worked together on lots of movies like Many Stair Goats or Good Night and Good Luck, also about the McCarthy era actually. And they work with the Coen Brothers a lot as well, I suppose. And
it had that tone to it, certainly.
Yeah, and I think at one point George Clooney was going to play the main character, and there was some discussion about the script, and they said, "Is there any reason this character couldn't be a woman?" And they're like, no, I guess not. So they cast Sandra Bullock. So I think also just as a sort of better roles for women thing in Hollywood, it would have been nice if this movie had been seen by more people. It starts off as a kind of the first 10 minutes or so I was really worried, because it starts off as like a Sandra Bullock movie where she's like tripping, falling out of a plane. Like there's a montage. She
only fell down once.
No, the movie does get better, but I just think there was this montage on YouTube of every time women fall down in romantic comedies, and it happens a surprising amount. It's just like, women lose balance. That's amusing. So I was worried it was going to be really dumb.
It's kind of funny.
It gets so good, though. It gets really clever, and it's about them. Like, imagine the candidate is like Fianna Fáil, but a million times worse, and they have to like make him likable to the public, and then she realizes, well, no, look, if he's going to be a brash asshole, just sort of make that his sort of selling point, that he doesn't take shit from anyone. And I suppose we're seeing with Donald Trump right now,
it's so much relevance. That's what the point is. It's to make him not likable, but to make him seem like a necessary evil, I suppose. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think the most comparable movie you could compare it to, that's a terrible sentence, is In the Loop, which is also a movie about behind closed doors, political shenanigans, set in a kind of comedic tone. But
definitely has that thick of it vibe.
Quite serious things, yeah. That's the difference, though. I feel like In the Loop is this comedy the whole way through, but at the end, very much reminds you that, yes, but these people still started the war in Iraq. It still has that really down ending. This film didn't quite stick the landing. It's not a bad ending. It could have been worse, but it's just about on the level of getting away with it.
It gets away with it because I think the ending is open to interpretation depending on your worldview. Yes. But I think it just establishes just how much of a mess the country is in, how Bolivia, the whole thing throughout the election is the Bolivia are worried about the IMF coming in. I'm glad we've never had to worry about that. The way it deals with the IMF is actually just so honest by Hollywood standards that you would think, I suppose, maybe how many American audiences are even familiar with the IMF, even though America has a majority vote of shares in the IMF and the policies it introduces to different countries. So it gets into stuff about that while still being entertaining.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. That it's too politically savvy for its own good, to the point that it would be problematic, I think, for the Oscars to nominate this one too heavily. Purely, I think Sandra Bullock should have been nominated. She was really good in this.
She actually really was good.
This is the best thing I've seen her in years.
But she was also. I mean, I think it's just that America is the bad guy. I mean,
exactly.
Kind of in the same way in Trumbo, the film industry are kind of the bad guys. Some people in the film industry aren't, and others are. Whereas this. To make the IMF the bad guys, you are saying, America's economic policies and foreign policies are wrong. And you can do that to some extent in Hollywood movies, but this goes
like
to
Quantum of Solace, where you make up a fictional agency that is just the IMF, but call them like something like Quantum, full of nebulous businessmen with foreign accents and global power plays. But here it's just it's the IMF. Anthony Mackie is sort of probably the closest thing to a good American you see in the whole movie, and even he's quite self-aware about the crap they're doing.
Yeah.
That's the problem, I think. Like, it is too self-aware of... It's just too... I'm surprised this got made. I don't understand how this got made, how it got financed. It's too scathing of modern American political views that if it was like a Michael Moore movie, I'd be like, fine, this is for his audience. But
I hate Michael Moore, though. It is for that kind of audience, though. Yeah. Having said that, though, it is quite clever. I mean, it's a lot better than anything Aaron Sorkin's written lately. I'll put it that way. So, I think catch up on that, because I knew once I saw the title, Our Brand is Crisis, nobody was going to go see it, but it is actually good and worth seeing.
Definitely.
We've one more movie to discuss, which I think is definitely worth seeing, even though I think we should probably prefix this by saying it's not for everyone.
No, before this even came out, I in my head thought this will be this year's Kingsman, this will be this year's Kick-Ass 2 / Kick-Ass 1. I'm probably going to like it. All of my friends are probably going to hate it. I couldn't judge if you'd like it or not, and I thought you might, but thought you might turn against the way.
I ended up getting to another screening of it, and then I saw it with the right crowd.
Yes.
I think laughing so much, I had see this with a crowd if you're going to see it at all. I had such a big smile on my face coming out of it. It's Deadpool.
Yeah, because this movie has sort of been in production hell for nigh on 6 years now. Because when they made X-Men Origins Wolverine, there was plans to do a Deadpool movie then, but then that movie totally missed the point of Deadpool and just made a terrible, terrible version of him. And I think it only
in the comic book, he is this smarmy, cocky anti-hero who breaks the fourth wall. And they stitch his mouth up and make him like a horror movie monster, kind of. So it's just the exact
Wolverine,
opposite
yes,
of...
Exactly. Like, he's literally... His moniker is the Merc with the Mouth, but they make him not able to talk in that movie, just to be... But, anyway, I think this only got made because they accidentally leaked that test footage a couple of years ago, which actually is a major part of the movie. And the internet went, oh my god, it's perfect, make that. And they went, okay. And I don't think they had any faith in it, but... I will say this, if you don't see the movie, look up the marketing campaign. Look up the posters, look up the little snippets, the TV spots. The marketing of this movie was incredible. If there was some award for marketing in Hollywood movie making on an Oscar level, it deserved it. It was so funny, it was so on point, it was so self-aware and brilliant. But the movie itself, yes, it's great. Ryan Reynolds, I think this is sort of his renaissance, but this is his reconnaissance, if you will. Because between the voices and this, actually the voices kept coming in my head in this one, because it's an equally kind of dark comedy where he's just playing this super nice guy who's actually really a terrible human being.
Yes, he can do that balance so well.
He's really good
and
at
he
it.
can be like a sort of charming, hunky, hot guy, whilst also like going for the really dumb humor and great comic timing, like dumb humor in a good way.
Like that's the problem. The dumb humor worked. Like I didn't think I'd laugh as much as I did. I thought I would hate most of the jokes, but even the really crass ones, I still found funny. The delivery was so good. He just sold every line.
There were so many crass lines in this. Let's not start quoting it, because there's actually so many brilliant lines that where I was genuinely laughing out loud. Oh god, like
I will just say I do love that line. Fourth wall break inside a fourth wall break. That's like 16 walls.
Mercenary guys offering him like mutation surgery or whatever, and he says, "How can I help you? Besides luring children into your van because you look creepy." And it's I'm just laughing thinking of moments I remember from it, not just the comedy moments, visual comedy involving the action, breaking the fourth wall moments. They know how many is too many.
Yes.
They stop just before it gets annoying. Tonally, a lot of it is quite funny, gets quite serious, especially during the bit where it's his origin story of how he became a mutant superhero. That bit, the audience completely changed, and that bit got really dark. And it was funny again after that, but it's just kind of... this movie just had a surprisingly good grasp of tone. And, like, the actors were great. Like T.J. Miller, Marina Baccarin, Nicholas Holt's evil twin, Ed Skrein.
Ed Skrein, yes.
Yeah.
The awful Transporter movie guy.
And they bring in other X-Men, so it is set in the same universe as the X-Men movies, but there's actually a line where it's just like, we need to bring you to the Professor, and he's like, Stewart or McAvoy, these timelines are so confusing. And it's like, I suppose what you were saying about the marketing campaign is that this movie is being so self-aware about superhero movies and everything, and that could get annoying, but it works. I think it's largely down to Ryan Reynolds' charm. He's just so charming.
Down to that, but I feel like also the fact that it was in production hell for so long, and they probably had enough time to keep rewriting the script and changing and tweaking it. And I think the balance was just perfect in that it works as a standalone action movie, it works as a standalone comedy, but it is very much entrenched in the modern, behemoth of superhero production. And it is in the same universe as the current X-Men movies. It does have some of those characters that reference those movies. I'm sure he'll show up at some point, and yet it never feels intruded on by that. Like, the Marvel movies are getting to the point now where it's getting a bit... I can imagine if you're a casual fan...
Because this is separate from the Marvel movies Disney
Yes.
own. It's so Fox still own X-Men and
the Fox
this.
universe.
I suppose they'll just justify it. Any of the fourth wall breaking he does, they'll just say Deadpool is crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
He's talking into blank space, even though he's talking to the camera, and they'll just justify it like that. It's so funny.
But I just find it strange that they can bring in X-Men characters and it doesn't feel weird. They don't feel the need to explain who they are, and even if you don't know who they are, it wouldn't matter. And also, I think
because I didn't know I know nothing about comic books yet. I think these characters were just visually they were just set up well. So I was like, okay, yeah, no, I can big steel Russian guy, and
because Colossus has been in the X-Men movies before,
Yeah.
but you don't remember him because he's always in human form, but he was entirely in CGI form here, and he was just a comedic relief. And he's great.
then
But
there was a
also,
teenage girl
yes.
who
I
is
can't remember her
fantastic
actress's
because
name or the character's name. Negasonic Teenage Warhead?
Yes,
Was
it
that
was a
it?
big
Okay.
name like that, and Deadpool goes, "That's such an awesome name." And the thing was, she's this sullen kind of. She's very impatient and everything. Deadpool starts going, "Ooh, I'm a teenage girl. I'm all sullen and impatient, and I'm either gonna go into a sullen silence or make a mean comment. Which are you gonna do now?" And she's like, "Shit, he's got me boxed in." And it's like, aha! It's like they will even deconstruct characters as the movie is going along. It's just so gutsy, and I think probably the fact that they can go so far with it, that's probably why it's still a fresh movie. Because I guess I was just worried that irreverent superhero has been done before. It's Kick-Ass,
Yeah.
it's Super or.
I still think Kick-Ass is better than this, but
I still think Kick-Ass is better than this. This is a close second in terms of that kind of movie where it's like being a self-aware superhero movie. Like this was I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed this. I think it'll be one of my films of the year.
I'm
loved
worried it will be too. I do think though
Worried.
Negasonic Teenage Warhead was probably the masterstroke of the movie, purely because Deadpool what the audience wanted in terms of who the audience is, that demographic is sort of our age and older. So this is a movie for late 20s, 30-year-old nerds. But Deadpool's biggest demographic is like 14-year-old boys, because that's the type of humor he has. But she's the masterstroke because she is the audience surrogate for the actual demographic that are sneaking into this movie that won't get the jokes that the true, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
all of his references don't make sense to her in the same way they don't make sense to the actual like 14-year-olds watching this movie.
And
it's
she's a female,
so many levels of self-awareness. It's just perfect.
she's also a
It's
female
so-
heroine who isn't sexualized, but nor is she like Hit Girl and Kick-Ass, where it's like a big deal. Like she's a young girl and she can do all this stuff. It's just very matter of fact, and including that, and not making a big deal out of it. Like, look how progressive we are. So that in itself is progressive. It ends up being like I just no, like, even just aside from all that, because this film will have some like off-color moments where the humor is a bit dodgy, but
It's far from perfect in that sense.
it's a lot better than Kingsman, though, so I don't think this is comparable to Kingsman. I think I had such a huge smile on my face when it was over, and I like the fuck you thing they do at the post-credits
was
bit. It's the most fun I've had in a movie in a while, so so like if that is your kind of it is very violent and crass at times and everything, so it's not gonna be for everyone, but if that is your kind of thing, definitely see that.
Like, honest question, how many times did you laugh during the opening credits?
The opening credits.
Don't explain what they are, but that, like...
Some douchebags film starring a hot chick, the comic relief, written by the
the
real
real
heroes
heroes
here, directed by an overpaid hack. Instantly.
Exactly.
It establishes what this movie is trying to be already.
While still
It's
being
just like,
hyper-violent and full of really horrible imagery and like an off-color song playing. It's great.
because people are so much... General audiences are so much more savvy and familiar with filmmaking grammar and everything than they're given credit for now, so that this movie, does that and respects the audience's intelligence.
But the most
I just thought
important
it
thing
was great.
is it's doing really well at the box office, which is proof that you can make an R-rated movie that is like a big budget superhero film and it still make money. So hopefully Suicide Squad will be good, and then we can start getting more movies like this, because I'm sort of sick of the Marvel everything's a quippy joke for kids thing. More of this, please. Please.
Yeah, and I'd be looking forward to Deadpool 2, as long as it's not like Zoolander 2, which is just a collection of sketches that go on for too long and celebrity cameos that aren't funny.
I actually forgot that movie existed until just now.
It's only out this month, but...
if we can review trailers, I saw the trailer for it finally, and it was just the death of comedy. I did not laugh. No, okay, sorry, I laughed once. I laughed at that opening gag when he's throwing stuff at him, and is throwing bigger and bigger stuff at him. That was mildly amusing. And also the visual gag of Will Farrell,
prison
whatever.
changed me.
Yeah, and is ripping off them fat suit. That was clever.
No, but you keep the fat suit. You change his character so that he now is a big muscly ex-con.
No,
you don't just
but
go
it's a
back
funny
to
subversion of
what
that
he always
trope.
was. Look, here's
What
what I'll
wasn't
say.
funny were the boob jokes.
Instead of seeing the teaser was funny. I've said this before. The teaser was
Haven't
really
seen
fit.
it.
Then the trailer, when they actually show you scenes from the movie, it's like, oh no, and your heart sinks. So no, instead of seeing Zoolander 2, just watch Zoolander again.
Or see Deadpool. Or Trumbo.
There's Brandon's Crisis is worth catching
Is
up
that
on.
still out?
Or Brandon's Crisis. If it isn't, I'll find the
I'm
one
sure it'll
screen
be on
that's showing it.
video on demand like in a week.
Wink. Okay,
No, a
well,
week.
we're gonna have to wrap it up there, I think. So
I see what you did there.
we'll be back next month. Join us next time on the Film Ireland podcast. I'm Jonathan Victory.
Yeah, see you in a month when Saoirse Ronan's won something else she didn't deserve, and that movie's also gotten more awards it didn't deserve, and I'll just jump off a bridge in Brooklyn
And
to
tell
make
us
the irony complete.
that'll be great. And do make sure you catch something at the Dublin Film Festival, and tweet us. Tell us what you saw and what you thought of it. Have a good month.